I'm Sabrina Ramonov, and in this video, I'm going to give ChatGPT a high school math puzzle and see if it can figure it out. So here is the problem statement. What is sine alpha times sine beta times sine gamma, dot, 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 all the way through the entire Greek alphabet times sine omega? So the trick here is when you get to sine pi, do you assume it's a variable or a value? Well, you've probably never seen a variable named pi because that would upend the entire mathematics community. We know that you treat pi as a value, which makes sine of pi equal to 0, and therefore the whole product equals 0. So in this video, I'm going to see if ChatGPT can figure out this little trick, this puzzle, and I'll try different prompt engineering techniques to see what works best. So as usual, let's start with a very naive prompt, just giving it the question. Okay, and it says the product of the sine of multiple angles does not simplify in general, blah, blah, blah. There are specific cases, If you have specific angles in mind or context, please provide more details. So it's asking for more information because it doesn't really infer that the ellipsis means sine of pi is included in this product, and therefore the product should be 0. I didn't expect that much more. We didn't really give it anything else to work with. We didn't even give it an identity, like, you are a math professor or anything. But next, let's try the same problem, but with chain of thought. Let's see what that does. So we'll say, take a deep breath and work on this problem step by step. And chain of thought has been shown to work really well for these kinds of logic and reasoning tasks. So let's see if this is enough to nudge ChatGPT in the right direction. Okay, let's scroll up. Identify the angles, understand the sine function, product of sines. Okay, so it's breaking it down kind of step by step how it would approach solving this problem. It does say without specific values can't compute a numerical result, but then it tries to, discuss possible outcomes. So it does recognize that if any angle results in 0, then the product will be 0. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Here, I guess it walks through an example with specific values, but that's not super helpful to us trying to solve a puzzle. Okay, so unfortunately, chain of thought did not work. Next, let's try asking ChatGPT more explicitly to devise a plan first and then follow the plan. Okay, so here's the detailed plan it put together. I'm curious if it's any better than the chain of thought version. So determine if there are any specific values, evaluate the general case, look for special cases, Okay, step by step, given a series of angles, blah, blah, blah. General case with, now it's stuck on this again. Without specific angles, can't determine precise numerical products. Similar to before, it knows that if one of the answers is 0, then the entire product will be 0. Blah, blah. So the conclusion is 0 if any of the angles lead to. So again, it didn't really get the puzzle. Didn't really understand that within this ellipsis is implied sine of pi, and therefore the answer is 0. It kind of gives us this vague answer of the specific product that depends entirely on the given angles. So let's try a different approach. Maybe I want to try kind of like a pseudo agent system where we ask ChatGPT to solve the problem and then think about it and like give feedback on the solution and then use that feedback to try to solve it again. So it's not a true agent system, and like we're not using different LLMs here. We're just in a single ChatGPT session. It's the spirit of agents in the sense that we're asking ChatGPT to provide feedback on a solution and then use that feedback to hopefully arrive at a better solution. So here, paste the problem, and then the first step would be solve the problem. Okay. And then for the second step, let's try to give it an identity. So assume you are a professional mathematician and view the solution. So hopefully that'll help. Then the third step is to solve the problem again using the review from the professional mathematician. And that's what I mean kind of by the spirit of agents. It's using like the environment and feedback from step 2 to hopefully have a better solution to the problem in step 3. pi. So now step one, trying to solve the problem, product of sines, special cases. Assume you are, okay. Does not generally simplify. Okay. Mathematician realizes in specific sets of angles, known trigonometric identities might reduce the complexity. Let's see if that helps it with anything. That seems unnecessary. Step three is, yeah, I don't know if the mathematician's review made it any simpler. So I don't know if step three will be any better, but yeah, no, that just it seemed like it made it more complicated unnecessarily. Okay, so much for pseudo agents. Let's try being like a lot more explicit with ChatGPT, because I feel like it's really just not getting the fact that there's an ellipsis and needs to think about what's inside the ellipsis. So let's actually give it a hint and tell it to use the hint. So use the following hints when solving the problem. Is one of the multipliers 0? We know that the answer is yes, but we want ChatGPT to realize that. Okay, so ChatGPT realizes it's equal to 0 at integer multiples of pi. So that's good. Yeah, but again, the answer really doesn't recognize that sine of pi is included in the problem statements. It just says the product 0 if one of the angles is an integer multiple of pi. I don't know. I guess it's slightly closer than the previous answers, but I was hoping that like this hint would make ChatGPT realize like the trick in the puzzle. So let's try again, but I want to give it like an even more explicit hint. So we will literally tell ChatGPT to write out each multiplier and check if one of them is 0. Let's say 0, numeric 0. Okay, so it's now looking at some common angles where it would be 0. It's walking through an example with some angles. Well, I mean, yeah, so yeah, that didn't really help. it kind of skipped the part of solving like the initial problem statement and realizing that sine of pi is embedded within the problem. So kind of just gave a generic answer. If any angle in the product has a sine value of 0, then the entire product is 0. But we knew that. Okay. Now I want to try forcing ChatGPT to like explicitly write every multiplier and like mention that there's an ellipsis. So hopefully it will like know what to do when there's an ellipsis, then try to solve the problem. So how should I word this? So first, explicitly write every single multiplier in the product without ellipsis. So here I'm mentioning there is an ellipsis, and hopefully ChatGPT can use its knowledge to know that an ellipsis means something is implied. And then try to solve the problem. See how that does. There's a lot of red flashing on the screen right there. So to expand. Okay, so to explicitly write out the product, blah, 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 we need to know the number of terms. Assuming there are n terms. Okay. Still says we need additional context. Blah, blah, blah. It gives an example again with specific angles. Oh. No, this is specifically related to this example. Okay, darn. I got my hopes up because I thought it actually got it. But no, that it's saying the product is 0 in this particular example where it's set one of the specific angles to pi. So its final answer is the product of multiple sine terms typically depends on specific angles. So unfortunately, it didn't really get that either. So what I want to try next is forcing ChatGPT to write out every single multiplier in the product without the ellipsis. Because I feel like if it can do that and then it recognizes that sine of pi is embedded there, then it'll conclude properly that the answer is zero. The last try we did, I mean, we asked it to write out each multiplier, but I feel like it skipped that step because it didn't list out sine of pi anywhere. So here we'll ask a question and then first explicitly write out every single multiplier in this product without ellipsis. Then try to solve the problem. We'll add chain of thought as well. Take a deep breath and take it step by step. See how it does. Okay, so it's beginning by explicitly writing out the Greek letters. Okay, so it listed all 24 letters in the Greek alphabet, and it's using this information to explicitly write out the product without ellipsis. Okay, awesome. So we see sine pi is actually included here. Since sine pi is one of the angles in our product. Oh, sine pi is zero. Hence the product is zero. All right, so it actually got it. This is awesome. So what we did here is we posed the question and then we asked it to write out every single multiplier without ellipsis, then solve the problem, and also to take a deep breath and take it step by step. And so ChatGPT started by listing all the Greek letters in the alphabet, so it got that we're using all the Greek letters, and then it wrote out the product explicitly here. And since sine pi is one of the angles in our product, then the answer must be zero. Okay. All right, so we got one attempt. I'm going to call this force expansion and label it correct just so I can go back to it later. It is unfortunate, though, that we had to be this explicit. I feel like by telling ChatGPT to write out every multiplier without ellipsis, it's like a pretty big hint. And so I'm curious, if there's another way ChatGPT could have gotten this right without us having to hold its hand at each step. And so what I want to try next is giving it a little more context. So I'm going to say, solve the following riddle. And see if that works. And I phrased it this way so that it sounds like there is an answer. Oh, well, there you go. Got it. That's the answer. So the riddle is zero because one of the angles will make the product zero. So the riddle plays on the mathematical properties of the sine function and the variables involved. One interesting property is that for is zero, one of the angles in the series is specifically omega, which is a multiple of pi, will make the product zero. So that's weird. So that's not the right answer. I mean, it's the correct answer because it's zero, but the reasoning is really weird. Sine omega is just a variable like any other. This would have been the correct answer if it said just specifically pi, which is a multiple of pi, will make the product zero. So that's weird but promising. My hypothesis is that using the word riddle makes ChatGPT more certain that there's a definitive answer. Like if someone gave you a riddle, you would assume that there is a correct answer. So I actually want to run it multiple times and see if this is consistent. Let's try again here. It's a classic mathematical joke. Is zero. Yeah, specifically sine of pi that equals zero. Therefore, the product is zero. Okay, so that's another. It got it correct twice in a row. The first one just had a little weird reasoning. This one is spot on though, and it's very succinct as well. It recognizes it's a mathematical riddle. One angle is sine of pi, therefore it equals zero. I want to run it a third time, just curious. Since sine of pi is equals zero and pi is typically included in such series to indicate completeness. It's a weird phrasing. The answer to the riddle is zero, but I'll take the answer. So 3 out of 3 times. Simply by providing this context, solve the following riddle. ChatGPT got it right. So it really does seem like this context, and maybe my hypothesis is the word riddle is forcing ChatGPT to produce an answer rather than giving like a generic solution. 1 out of 3 times the explanation like was not good, but 2 out of 3 times the explanation was spot on. I am curious though if it is that single word riddle. So let's try this again, but change just one word. We're just going to change riddle to problem. Yeah, so now you see we changed it back to problem, and it's giving us this like really long thought process and everything, trying to analyze like every aspect of the problem, and then concludes like we saw before, without specific values the exact product can't be determined. So it's really interesting. 3 out of 3 times solve the following riddle, produce the correct answer, but when we change the word riddle to problem, it's trying to find this like generic solution again, and it's not realizing that there actually is an answer and that it is a riddle. And just to be sure, just like we did with the riddle, let's run it again just to see if the answer is consistent. Yeah, it's giving us like long answer about arbitrary angles, and for a more precise solution, the exact angles or context needed. So let's just try it one more time so it's a fair comparison. 3 times, solve the following riddle. 3 times, solve the following problem. Like literally one word difference in the prompt. Okay, so this time it got it right. So the third time, solve the following problem, it did get it right. So let's look at its reasoning. Given that these angles represent all angles in a single period. So it arrived at the correct answer, but the reasoning is a little bit shaky. It's kind of assuming that like the list of angles we provide represents all the angles in a single period of the sine function, meaning like we include 0, pi, and 2 pi. And with that assumption, then it concludes the answer is 0. So it's not the correct reasoning, but it is the correct answer. So just to compare, 3 out of 3 times the riddle got it right, and only one answer was a bit shaky. And then when we changed literally just one word in the prompt, we changed riddle to problem. 2 out of 3 times was just totally wrong, trying to look for a general solution, didn't realize kind of the trick in the question. And then this time it did get the answer right, but not for the correct reasoning. All right, so to wrap up this video, there were 2 approaches that ended up working. So the first is what I called force expansion, which was like literally telling ChatGPT to explicitly write out every single multiplier in the product without ellipsis, then try to solve the problem. And then I also added chain of thought, telling ChatGPT to take a deep breath and take it step by step. Then ChatGPT solved it by like writing out all the Greek alphabet and then explicitly writing out every multiplier in the product, realizing that sine of pi is there, and then giving us the correct answer. And surprisingly, removing all of that and just telling ChatGPT to solve the riddle worked 3 out of 3 times. And I think it's because like that word riddle really forces ChatGPT to look for a closed form solution. Like it assumes there's an answer, and it worked really well. All right, I'm Sabrina Ramonov. This was my video just on a Saturday morning, just trying to test out some high school math puzzles with ChatGPT. If you like this video, hit like, drop a comment, subscribe. Look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.